December is always a very quiet month for me, so there's not much happening in the garden. Most of the garden beds had been cleaned up and covered in October, just before a 3-week trip to Sydney to visit my family. December is a pretty good month to figure out what you kind of want to do with the garden for the next season. Apart from tidying and weeding, there isn't much else to do, so it's a good brainstorming time. So for me, I figured out that the wildlife area needs to be redone. It's become really overgrown because the pathways got overrun, so it was hard to go and move around in it. And I realized that the pond needs to be at least double the size, both wider and deeper. But I want to sort of put off taking all the plants out of the wildlife corner because I really want a place for sheltering insects over the winter. Apart from some garlic that I planted in October, I haven't really planted anything else for overwintering. On the second day of the year, it actually started snowing in the Netherlands. This isn't actually very common anymore, maybe 20 years ago, but since I've lived here, I don't think I've ever seen snow this heavy in January. And the weird thing about it was that it just kept snowing. So we had about a full week of snow, which was very uncommon. Usually what happens is that we get like 2 or 3 days of snow and then it just melts straight away, but this really stuck around. So suffice to say, I couldn't really do a lot of allotment gardening because of the snow. But I was really curious to see what my allotment looked like while it was snowed under, so when there was a break in the snowfall, I went and walked to the allotment. This was actually on the 2nd of January when I came to see the garden. It was completely covered in snow. That was really nice because it made things look really neat, like you couldn't see weeds anymore, just snow. And I was really happy that I left a wildlife garden quite overgrown because it gave plenty of insects a place to shelter from the snow and the cold. This is actually the first time that the garden has been completely blanketed in snow. That's how rare this kind of heavy snowfall is. But I saw I think these were bird tracks because it looked like it was hopping and then the tracks just disappeared like it flew away. The weight of the snow weighed down some of the garden nets. So I shook that off because I didn't want the net fully collapsing onto the bed. And I did see in another garden that someone's polytunnel was completely caved in because of the weight of the snow. So I just went around the garden, just checking everything out, taking off more snow from any of the garden nets where it had accumulated. And I kept looking for animal prints because I thought that was really cool, seeing how the bird footprints kind of just disappeared when it flew off. The garlic looked pretty good under all that snow, and the other beds looked pretty nice and tucked in as well. The pond froze over as well, and looking back at the video, I may have missed some animal prints there too. So that was my visit the first day of the snow. I came back a week and a half later after a few severe weather warnings, and by that time, some snow had melted. As you can see, I didn't have to shake off any snow off the nets, and there were patches of pathway visible. I wasn't here for very long. The main reason was to prune the little apple tree. This is a holdover from the previous owner. I've kept it around because the apples are tasty, but the shape is ugly. So I cut some branches that were growing in towards the center and tidied it up. Back in my warm house, I started sowing some seeds. So I have a few peppers, chilies, and eggplant seeds that are quite old. So I don't know if they're still viable. So I did the germination in a paper towel test. Basically, you just put some seeds in a wet paper towel in a warm spot and then check in a few days or so to see if there's any germination. I had a lot of old seeds to test, so I wrote a number on the paper towel and then I used painter's tape to label it on the Ziploc bag. So that's how I could check if that seed was viable or not. I put the seeds on a heat mat and then checked a week later, and there was some germination for this eggplant. Ideally, you want to plant the seeds as soon as they've sprouted. They're a lot easier to handle when their roots haven't gotten too big. You're more likely to not snap anything if they're not too big yet. So I prepared a seed tray, I tamped it down. So this is just normal potting soil. Put the sprouted seeds in and covered it with vermiculite. Then I sowed other seeds. These are fresh seeds, so I didn't think it was necessary to pre-sprout them beforehand. I top it off with wetted vermiculite because I've had good success with it in the past, and for me, I feel like it's easy for the seedlings to push through, and also I don't get as many fungus gnats when I do it this way. I started my onion seeds the same way. I didn't pre-sprout them, and I have a lot of old seeds, so I really oversowed them because onion seeds, when they're old, they usually have very bad germination rates. I put a cover over both the trays and then placed them on a heat mat. The heat mat really helps with germination. I do this every year and I usually get pretty good germination rates this way. So hopefully this year is going to be a good pepper and eggplant year.